Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I want to talk to you about Grand Funk Railroad, simply one of the best bands of all time, and one whose ending, whose swan song, was very different than one would predict. Now, the core lineup of Grand Funk was, of course, Mark Farner on guitar, vocal, and occasional keyboards, Mel Shocker, who was, of course, a very good bass player, very funky, Don Brewer drums and sometimes lead vocals, and then after 1973, Craig Frost, who had played keys with the band, became an official member, and the trio became a quartet, but everything stayed the same in the best possible way. Grand Funk were a band that were paradoxically loved by every audience that they played in front of. And the reason for that is simple. They played hard, high energy performances. They gave it their all. Shirts were off, sweat was flying, the decibels were pounding. They never missed a beat. They played well, they sung well. Pay attention to that. That's going to be a theme of this. And they really put on great shows. They were true bona fide entertainers. They weren't the people staring at their shoes. They weren't the people watching the clock. They came to entertain. They came to play, and they developed very rapidly a reputation around the world, but mainly in Middle America, which is where they were from, as one of the hardest working bands in the show business of the day. A band that always put on a fantastic concert, whether at a big hall, a small hall, and they shot to fame very quickly from their humble roots in Flint, Michigan. Michigan was home to sort of the birth of American hard rock in many ways, just as Birmingham in England was the birth of UK hard rock and heavy metal. Think about it, Alice Cooper, Bob Seger, MC5, the list goes on, but I digress. So the albums were great. They sold very well. They kept churning them out. Not a lot of overdubs, not a lot of prissy pomposity. It was all just pure. And they gained fame, but the critics hated them. Now, why is that? Were they bad musicians? No, they were very good, solid musicians, very soulful, very funky, very hard rocking. Was it because of the subject matter? Not really, I don't think. No. I think it was a snobbery of the critics as rock and roll matured as a commercial enterprise. A lot of critics didn't like how they were a very working class grassroots band that took good, fun, pounding music to the people. They would have preferred it to be, one of those other tropes, one of those other musical stereotypes I mentioned earlier. So the critics always hated them, but the fans always ate them up. Couldn't get enough of them. FM radio loved them. Even some of the AM radio loved them, but rock was increasingly becoming an FM format by this time. Now, in early 1976, they released an album called Born to Die, which the band's effective leader, Mark Farner, dedicated to his cousin who died in a motorbike accident. And that was supposed to be it. That was supposed to be when the band was going to call it quits. But they didn't because Frank Zappa entered the picture. Now, Frank Zappa was a huge, and I mean huge fan with a Y, of Grand Funk Railroad. He liked their purity. He liked their musicianship. He liked the fact that they could put on an ass kicking show live in the flesh. And so, even though the band was pretty much broken up by late 76, he said, "Come on, guys, just let's do a session in the studios. Just play. No overdubbing, no multiple takes, just fucking play." And they did. And they created an album produced by Frank Zappa called Good Singing, Good Playing. That was Zappa's name because he was always disappointed in their previous records insofar as he felt that they didn't adequately capture just how loud, proud, and funky they were and hard rocking they were in a live venue. So he wanted to produce a totally no frills Grand Funk album. And the results were great. You could make a strong argument that it's one of their best albums because it really is so raw. Even the style of production, very raw. Think the opposite of a thing like Joe's Garage, which was very cleanly produced and with a lot of precision, thanks to Alan Sides and others. And there was just something about the album that was interesting, and you even saw something that was rather ahead of its time. There was an album called oh, sorry, an album. There was a song called "Don't Let 'Em Take Your Gun" on the record, and this was one of the first anti-gun control songs. And this was 1976, before the issue really became huge in the sort of mid 80s, 90s, and it remains today. And so that was kind of ahead of its time. 1976 was obviously the centennial, the 200-year anniversary of the founding of the US. There's lots of reference to that. And you can kind of sort of feel the aroma of Zappa in there. I mean, it's a pure Grand Funk album, but you can feel that Zappa was in the room and that he did make his quiet but unmistakable contributions. He, for instance, played guitar on the song Out to Get You, and the guitar is unmistakably Frank Zappa. So check out all of Grand Funk's discography. There's really not a bad album in it. And their albums don't really have filler. It just goes from fun song to interesting song to fun song to hard rock song to it's got it all. They were a band that was born to please, and they never disappointed. But check out Good Singing, Good Playing. It's out of print the last time I checked, but you can find copies of it quite easily, and some chappies out there have uploaded it to YouTube unofficially. But hey, I don't care, and I don't know why you should either. Check out the music, all of Grand Funk, particularly the final album of their first run, and frankly, the sort of semi reunions that happen on and off once every 25 years after that, and they were okay. But the 70s, late 60s to the mid 70s was the real Grand Funk, and this was where it all ended on a happy note with Frank Zappa in tow. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.